गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गन शॉट। गन शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today we're going to discuss about Myanmar and the endless turmoil in which this country is stuck in. And to talk about all this, I have with me General PC Nair. At the outset, let me welcome General PC Nair. Here he
Thank you,
comes.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Nair, and welcome to Gana Shot once again. It's been a long time, and I thought we must talk of Myanmar today. How you
Sir.
been, and what are you doing these days?
Sir. Thank you firstly for having me over, sir. And like you said, after some time, I was a little busy shifting into a civil house, and now I'm associated with many of the think tanks here in Delhi, sir, which is where I am. And of course, I move all around the country for various talks to various establishments, tri services, and also certain civil universities, etc. In fact, you see one Nalanda University where I go very regularly, right behind. So
Oh,
I go
good.
there. So, and then of course these podcasts once in a while I write. I'm a columnist for the Asian Age. So keeping
Oh,
myself busy in all of these. Besides also writing a book on Northeast for the USI.
oh, fantastic. It's something fantastic and great that we have a person who's actually, been in the thick of things in Manipur. Just to recount, I have the proud privilege that he was my principal staff officer for some time in his
So
part of his illustrious career and growth. He's commanded a brigade in the east. He's commanded a division also there, and then of course he was later DG Assam Rifles. And you heard he's a much sought after man in all think tanks on anything to do with the northeast. He's spoken with us earlier on the Northeast as a whole, and about Bangladesh and Myanmar. But today I asked him to come and speak to us about Myanmar. Myanmar has got a lot of issues. We all know that. It's been a long time. At times, uh, there are independent armies running this part of the state. At times, it appears that drug mafias are running the state. The drug business has taken off. The Chinese interests at times appear overwhelming. But at the same time, there are reports in China that they're facing a lot of problem on the Myanmar border. It is not a cakewalk for China at all. And then at times you see Tatmadaw making deals of kinds and all that. And you see China making deals with the Tatmadaw and the resistance forces. And there are all kinds of forces around there, which we've dealt with in great detail. The poppy trade and the drug trade has virtually doubled with the Afghanistan market closing down. We all know that. Uh, but what I wanted uh, General Nair to tell us is what's the latest situation there? What's the prognosis? What's going to happen ahead? How does he see things moving? And how they moved? How they're going to impact our security, especially in in Manipur and Mizoram? How is this going to connect up with Bangladesh? Because something is happening in Bangladesh. And there's a common border between Myanmar and Bangladesh, a little one, but it is there. So it's quite a muddle. And I thought we needed someone who had clarity of thought on all these and who had his pulse, his finger on the pulse of those events to speak to us. So that's why it was, I called General Nair over. With this kind of a thing, General Nair, all yours, please carry on.
thank you, sir, once again. While I did thank you for calling me over, but I think more importantly, I must thank you for bringing into light focus this country, this region, this part, which is actually not much spoken of, simply because it's not well publicized. People don't read much about it, and I think, sir, uh, that is where this talk between us is very important. And you thrown in quite a few questions. If I tackle all of them, it will take me close to 45 minutes, nothing less. But let me actually start with the Northeast. We all speak in India of partition. But in my long tenures in the Northeast, at least in the areas that border Myanmar, the bordering villages there, for them, the first partition happened in 1937, when the line got drawn, and which Burma, which was otherwise part of British India, was suddenly made into a different province, a different country by the British. So suddenly, an artificial line got drawn, and another country got created. So for them, this is the first instance when a separation of people happened by a cartographic line which got created. Then moving ahead, when 1947, you have Bangladesh coming. So there's another cartographic imposition that has happened for the people there in the Northeast. You again have another country created here, and you suddenly choke them. You cut off all their lines of communication, which is not understood by people. For example, the complete lines of communication, the rivers, etc., all flow from the Northeast into Bangladesh. So that's how the lines of communication were, the railways, roadways, everything. Similarly, vast majority of people, the people-to-people contact which was happening in Myanmar, suddenly got arrested because of creation of these two countries. So you choke them, Siliguri corridor, all of that we know. So it has deeply affected Northeast. Now, with that as a start point, so let me come back to the multiple questions that you've thrown, and let me begin with what is the current situation there. All of us know there was a change in dispensation, as we call it, the military coup, which happened on the 1st of February 2021. We are in the month of February, so it's 4 years since it has happened. Uh, but what I wish to bring to light to the audience here is, this is not the first time that a coup has happened in Myanmar. While it gained its independence a year after ours in 1948, the first coup of this kind, something like this, happened in 1962, when General Nevin assumed power. Now, that coup was very different, in the sense there were not very many protests. The military suddenly came onto the roads, and they assumed power. Going forward, the second coup which happened was in 1988, and that was a fallout of some student protests which were building up. Uh, and in that student protests, the military came out and fired at some of the soldiers, some of the students. They got killed, and suddenly another coup, so to speak. Now, this was typically not a coup because it was engineered by the Myanmar army itself, junta. But yes, there were massive protests. But again, the military took charge. Then going forward, what has happened now in 2021? This is a little different from the other two, in the sense, um, one, in the earlier times, in fact, right from the time Myanmar gained independence, you had these multiple ethnic groups which are strung in various states at the periphery of Myanmar, who've been fighting the junta for many years. Uh, Now, coup or no coup, they've constantly been fighting for reasons of secession, for reasons of their ethnic identity itself. Now, in this coup, what has happened is, suddenly you have new forces emerging. You have a NUG, National Unity Government, which is considered uh, by some of the people there as a government in exile. Essentially, these are the politicians from the NLD parties, which, though they won the elections in 2020 November, but couldn't take power, control of the country because of the coup. Now, what has happened is that the NAG has formed its own resistance force called as the PDF. The NAG itself got created sometimes in April, 2 months after the coup, and the PDF suddenly started forming in the month of May. So today you have People's Defense Force, the PDF. It is assumed that there are anything between 60 to 80 PDFs, but there are also something called as LDFs, that is the local defense forces, which belong to the places where the fightings are happening. The second thing that is different this time is, today unlike earlier times where the fighting used to be restricted uh, in the marginal areas, the so-called states, uh, it has now come to the main Barmer territory, that is the majority. The Barmers constitute almost 68% of the population there. So here is a situation where even in the Barmer territory, the fighting has spread. You have great cooperation happening between the ethnic armed groups or ethnic armed organizations, as they're called, as also the PDF. There is exchange of weapons, technology, communication. All of this was never happening. And besides, you have the internet. The people of Myanmar had got used to a lot of freedom, the internet, such like things between 2015 and 2020, when democracy in some way was making some gains there. So suddenly, when all these liberties, freedom, etc., got curtailed, obviously there has to be a pushback from the people. So that's another thing that has happened there, sir. The next thing that has also happened is uh, the Chinese influence in this. So what we need to know is the overbearing influence has been of China. You said that Chinese themselves are having some kind of resistance. That's because cutting across all stakeholders in Myanmar, China is not liked. China is not liked at all. They are just tolerating the Chinese. You talk of the even including the groups, ethnic armed groups who are totally controlled by China, or at least sponsored, funded, armed, equipped by China, are they are also not totally at their beck and call because nobody trusts them. And there is a history to this. When the Chinese came there in the form of the Burmese Communist Party from 1968 to 1986 or so, they indulged in all kinds of activities which kind of unsettled not just the Myanmar army but the masses. So there is a staunch anti-China feeling there. It's also because of the multiple Chinese projects that are there, which are not transparent. Not only are they not transparent, but they benefit the Chinese more than they benefit the Myanmaris. Then you have important commercial centers, big cities where Chinese businessmen hold great stakes. Again, that is the reason why they are not liked. So all of this is happening. And in addition, today, out of the 330 odd cities that are there in Myanmar, fighting is happening in 320 cities, which has never happened. Close to 220 odd cities, as per reports, have fallen. But while I say all of this, I must say, so everything that comes in the media must be treated with a pinch of salt because there are these some of these news items are spin doctored.
1 minute, Pradeep. 1 minute. Can you tilt your camera so that your face comes to the center of the screen?
Is this
Yeah,
better, sir?
yeah, that's good. Yeah, this is better. Yeah.
Okay. So now I come back to where I left. So this is what is different this time, 2021 coup. Now, like I said, sir, it is the fourth year. The Chinese have been at times making peace forays. They've been, of the Three Brotherhood Alliance. I'm sure the audience must have heard of that. The 1027, as it is called, October 27, 2023, when three groups, and let me name them: the Arakan Army, the MNDAA, that is the Myanmar National Defense Alliance Army, and TNLA, that is Tang National Liberation Army. So these are the three groups. They conjoined together, and suddenly they overran the northeastern command, which was there of Myanmar. Now, what has happened again very recently in the month of December, the Western Command uh, is under threat, or it was captured, which is at An in the state of Rakhine. So you have these two extremes, two commands that have been captured. Now, this is where the interesting part starts. There are 14 regional commands. We need to apply our mind where are these two commands located. They are located at the two extremes through which the complete Chinese economic interests run. The BRI, for example, the I'm talking of the oil and gas pipeline, for example. It's a 3.6 billion dollar stuff, which is there from northeast of Myanmar going down till southwest at Chok Fu port. Along this is also where the CMEC, that the China Myanmar Economic Corridor, is to come. So you suddenly have taken control of two of the regional commands at the two extremes, thereby ensuring that your interests are not compromised. Now, in this, I also want to bring to light the role of the Arakan armies. It is the Arakan army which has made great forays in the state of Rakhine, uh, captured 14 out of the 17 cities. The only three cities that are left are Mongdao, second Sitwe, which is where our Kaladan multimodal project starts in Myanmar, and third is Chokfu, which is the deep sea port of the Chinese for the oil and gas pipeline. So these are the only three cities. Now coming back to Arakan army, sir, I want to convey this to the audience because this is something that is not there. Again, I've not read it anywhere. This is my hypothesis, and I would want someone to correct me if I'm wrong. Now we need to go back in time, sir. A Kaladan multimodal project was first thought of in 2008. In 2009, suddenly this Arakan army gets raised. And where does it fight? Of course, Rakhine is here to the west. Arakan army starts fighting in the northeast near Kachin under the guidance of the Kachin Independence Army, KIA. Then they start fighting alongside the MNDA, along the TNLA, with all of them. And now, of course, they're part of Three Brotherhood Alliance. So what the Chinese have ensured is they've raised this army because they saw our interests, economic interests, our connectivity to Northeast coming here. So 2008 is when Kaladan was thought of. 2010, Berg started on Kaladan. And interestingly, 2010 is also the time when the work for the oil and gas pipeline started. So for them, it made sense to create an army which would take care of its interest on the Western Front in Rakhine. And that is how Arakan army got raised. Arakan army, when has it come to Rakhine? It has only come in 2023 after being raised in 2009. That is 14 years later. So for 14 years, on the job training, fighting the Myanmar army there in the northeast, now they've come here. And now we need to look a little deeper. What is Arakan army doing? Where all has it not reached? It has not touched the Chokfu port, deep sea port. Not only the Arakan army, but even the PDF has not touched the Chokfu port. So I'm trying to tell the audience of the great Chinese role which we have not read. So that is one part. You also asked as to what do I foresee now happening, and then of course we'll come to the northeast. How does it affect the northeast? So coming to what I see, the latest happenings that are there, the Senior General Mingong Yang has once again said that over the next 6 months, that is before July, there will be an elections held. And of course, this is the fourth time that he's promising that. But this time there is also some kind of a pressure. Of course, Myanmar doesn't care for rest of the world, but in some subtle manner, the Chinese are also trying to pressurize him because they have realized that things are not totally in his hand, though the Chinese are okay with any government that is there in power. So democracy, uh, probably, I won't put my money totally onto it, but there is an outside chance of elections being held. Maybe from now till July, the junta would work around how to ensure that the constitution of 2008, by virtue of which they have a lot of power, that doesn't get set aside. And more importantly, they come back to power. That is something they will try and ensure. So probably elections will happen. If that doesn't happen, the fighting will continue. Now, insofar as the fighting itself goes, while it is okay to hear that so much of losses, etc., the Myanmar army has suffered, what is there on ground is all these groups are not homogeneous in nature. They're all fighting with different ideas. Some of them want secession, some of them want federalism, some of them just want to fight the Myanmar army. So there is no one aim that all of them have, which is something that we need to understand. In so far as how does it affect the Northeast, There are 4 or 5 ways in which this coup has affected us, sir. One is, of course, which always comes to light, is the refugees. Today, we have my estimate is about 30,000 odd refugees in Mizoram. The UNHRC had last year put out a figure of 90,000, which is grossly incorrect. That's not the figures. And I told this to some of the other Myanmar followers. Having been this, what they're doing is they're counting the total number of people, and not all the people who came to Mizoram stayed there. Many of them went back. So that is one issue. Similarly, Manipur has got a problem of these refugees. The numbers are lesser, close to 3,000 is what my estimate is. The second one is how it impacts the insurgents itself. You are aware of the insurgent groups that are there, so you are aware of the camps that are there. There are close to 20 camps that were there before the fighting began. Northern cluster, which is onto the eastern side of Nagaland, Arunachal, the central cluster, which is to the eastern part of Manipur, and the southern cluster, which is to the southern part of Manipur. So these are the three clusters where these camps are. Now, the Meitei militants or the valley-based insurgent groups are fighting alongside the Myanmar army, while some of the Kuki who had picked up arms, and also the KNA, that is Kuki National Army of Burma, they are fighting along with the PDF. So surely there is a connection that is happening, and in all of this, it is also, there are enough reports to suggest that NSCN is making a lot of money by giving safe passages to both the parties. They take money for that. So it is going to affect our insurgency issue. Maybe there will be a spike in the number of militants. Manipur, we know the developments. The problem is also of the weapon inflow. Some of the weapons which were taken away from the armory in Manipur have gone across. Similarly, a lot of weapons have come from that side also. The third thing that is got affected is the drug cartels, the problem of drugs. And here I like to give some statistics, sir. I'll just spell out the contraband that the Assam Rifle has confiscated in the last, let's say, 4 years. 2024, sir, it was worth 1,900 crores. In 2023, it was worth 1,712 crores. In 2022, it was about 1,200 crores. And 2021, it was about 850 crores. So year on year, there is be a rise in the contraband that we've got. And when I talk of contraband, you can assume about 90% of it is drugs. Now, look at it this way. In terms of per capita consumption of illegal drugs in India, amongst the top 10, six states are from the Northeast. 6 out of 8 figure in the top 10, which is really alarming. So not only are the drugs being carried across, but also it is affecting the people of the Northeast. The next issue is, of course, so this is about, I was talking of, the effects of the problem there, of some of the Myanmar army people also coming this side. You heard in the last 2023-24 itself, close to 450 odd Myanmar soldiers also came across into India. Now, what that has happened is it has upset the people who are fighting there, the PDF, the other ethnic armed groups. So India is at a very precarious situation where it needs to now engage with all stakeholders, because all of them have some say. I spoke of the Arakan army. They have total control over the Kaladan multimodal project running as it does. So this is how I think it's affecting us.
Yeah. That lot of things which you said. Let's talk a little more about the Arakan army. So you feel the Arakan army is controlled, raised, propagated by China, and they are guarding the Chokfu fort, and they are in the Kaladan port, multimodal port. And what is their overall orientation of this army with vis-a-vis India at this point of time, and vis-a-vis Bangladesh? And after all, their There are problems there also. And is China is fully control of this Arakan army.
Right. So, in terms of numbers, let me begin with numbers. Today, everyone says that it has become the most powerful ethnic armed organization in Myanmar, which is very surprising given that it was only raised in 2009. The others are 40, 50 years old. So, surely they've been armed, equipped by China. In terms of numbers, if you go to the official website of the Arakan army, they claim to have a figure of almost 30,000. This is quite, and all these 30,000, of course, are not in Rakhine. There are some fighting there also on the eastern side. So they're partly here, they're partly there. In terms of uh, why it got raised in the first place, we need to go back in time, history, sir. 1785, if I remember correct, is the year when Arakan state, the Rakhine state was called as Arakan earlier, sir,
Arakan.
was attacked
Yeah.
by the king of Burma, then Kingdom of Awa as it was called, and they captured Arakan, which is now, it became Rakhine only in 1989. The junta changed it to Rakhine. Now, though they also have Buddhists, Myanmar itself, the composition is about 90%, 88 to 90% Buddhist. In Arakan, it is about 68 to 70%. So while they are Buddhists, but they are not Burmers. So they're not considered as uh, like main time Myanmar people. So there is a disconnect, which is right. It goes back from 1785, and from 1785, it is also one of the most neglected states, despite it having such a beautiful coastline. It was a state and resources. It is always neglected. In terms of Bangladesh, well, sir, Rakhine is the only state which shares boundary with Bangladesh, 270 odd kilometers, just 3% of the Bangladesh land border. There is this Nair River, which is bisecting them. The problem there is between, let's say, Rakhine or the Arakan army and Bangladesh is the Rohingyas. Rohingyas today are the constitute, or the Muslim population in Rakhine state is about 11, 12%. Uh, you know of the excesses that happened against the Rohingyas. Today, there are more than 1 million sitting in Cox's Bazar, uh, which is in Bangladesh. They've all crossed through the Naf River. There are also Rohingyas sitting towards Thailand, about 40, 50,000 of them waiting to, through Thailand, go to some other countries, Southeast Asian countries, or probably go even to the West, Europe or US, wherever. So the Rohingyas are victims of both the junta. The junta has committed excesses against them. So have the Arakan army. So they are, like it is typically said in Myanmar, they are people with no country. Nobody wants them. So the issue between Bangladesh and Arakan army is going to be the Rohingya refugees. Today, some of these Rohingyas have also been drafted in by the Myanmar army because they are short on numbers in terms of fighting strength. So that is another thing that we need to know. So in terms of how are they disposed towards us, Arakan army, so while it is controlled by China, like I said, no ethnic armed group in Myanmar, China can say that they're totally controlled by us. So while they may have been raised, funded, planned, everything by China, but they have their own, they want their own degree of freedom. In fact, just last month, one of the spokespersons of Arakan Army said that we have no issues uh, of your Kaladan multimodal project coming. And while I'm talking of that, we must, I mean, I think I need to tell the viewers as to what is the status of Kaladan. Everyone talks of Kaladan, Kaladan. What is the current status? So let's start with the Sitwe port itself, where the ships come and disembark and offload. The port is ready. The first ship of ours, I think, landed there was probably 2023 October. A lot of dredging has happened at the port itself and the Kaladan River, along which the whatever goods come, they then are transported in big boats. They come to then the first port, which is Paletwa in Chin. So till there, the river is okay, the port is okay. Insofar as the road from Paletwa to Zorunpui, which is on the Mizoram side, this is a 109-kilometer stretch. So I just want people to know, because often people have been asking me what is the status of this road, because this road also extends beyond up to Aizawl. So the within Mizoram, the road is ready. From Zorunpui, if you start going southwards towards, let's say, Paletwa, it's a total of 109 kilometers, like I said, sir. Let's assume, let's call Paletwa as 0 kilometers, and let's call Zorunpui as 109 kilometer. So from 109 to kilometer 60, the earth has been cleared, sir. It just has to be blacktopped. From 60 to kilometer 40, this is an area which is totally with the Arakan army. They are not allowing our work to happen. In fact, at kilometer 109, where Norenco, the company which is looking after this, has got its base, the Arakan army very recently told them, you shift your base, you go back into India. We want to create a camp here. So that is a problem which has to be addressed diplomatically. Then from kilometer 40 to kilometer 0 again, the earth has been cleared. There also it needs to be blacktop. So that is the latest situation of the road also.
So you think this will come through in the next 5, 6, 7 years?
Yes, sir, like I said, most important here is to engage all stakeholders. We should not totally give up that just because the Arakan army is in some way controlled by the Chinese. Surely, it also helps development of Rakhine states. It is not just for our northeast. Rakhine, like I said, sir, and Chin and also Sagaing are three states which have been hugely neglected. They are on the periphery. So suddenly, for them, it's in terms of medicines coming, grains coming, food, the other developmental activities happening. It helps them also because there are no major roads there in Rakhine. So I think we can have, we can make this happen in the next 4 to 5 years, as you asked.
Yeah, but let me ask you another question. If Arakan army has no problem with the Kaladan multimodal port, why does it have a problem with this connectivity road?
Okay, sir. Now, this statement of his is very recent, sir. But for it to translate on ground, I'm sure the engagements have to happen at the diplomatic level. And like I said, once that is done, because currently they're all focusing on what's happening in the three places which have not fallen. I spoke of Mongdao, Sitwe, and Chokfu, sir. Chokfu will not fall, that is for sure. But Sitwe symbolically is very important for the for the Arakan army because it's the capital of Rakhine state. So for optics, it's good that you get control of this. A large segment of Myanmar army is still holding out. It is supposed to be about 6 kilometers by 8 kilometers. That is 48 square kilometers, of which the Arakan army, the Myanmar army is still there. So right now their focus is theirs. Once they do whatever they want to do, whatever they have in mind, I'm sure they'll help here as well.
Okay. Now, in your assessment, do you think Tatmadaw will fall?
So this is again a question.
Let me put it this way: the way I look at it, the way I look at it.
Yes, sir, you were saying something else, sir?
No. I mean, this is because I was been following this, whole story from a long time. Historically, if you look at the way things have been happening in Myanmar, Tatmadaw and all these forces have been fighting with each other.
Yes.
And their eruptions of violence have gone on for 4, 5, 6 years. And Tatmadaw has actually earlier suffered bigger reverses and still come out of it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, like you rightly said, all these forces, all these three brotherhood army, all each state has its own army. The Chins have their own. I mean, the Kachins have their own, and all those. all independence armies and brotherhoods and MNDA and PDF and all, they don't have, like you rightly said, they don't have an ideology, they don't have a political, locus, or a political locus where they all meet. And this Arakan army also does it. What is its political thing that it wants to have Arakan Yoma state of the old? I don't know how that will happen. So, do you see this intestine quarrels going to some distance? Because, or Tatmadaw coming back?
So, this is a question that has troubled my mind right from the time this started. And I've been a follower of happenings in Myanmar for the past more than a decade, sir. And my experience, whatever I've studied, is it will not false. Like I said some time back, we should not totally go by what's coming in the media. Uh,
Yeah, that's why. That's why.
quite a lot of it is spin doctored. The numbers are blown out of proportion, particularly in terms of the numbers of the Myanmar army, in terms of how many have died, how many have fallen, all of that. Yes, today Myanmar army is to a very great degree low on morale, low in numbers. Uh, they have issues. They are not being paid. They are not being sent on leave. There is forced conscription that is happening. All of that is there, but the main actor is China's. China will ensure that the Tamadao does not fall. It is in their interest, because the feelings against the Tatmadaw today in the country are so profound uh, that if they fall, then Myanmar will go totally out of control for the Chinese. So, for their interest, they will ensure it remains there. So, it's not just the grandstandings that China makes in world forums, the UN, etc., but it is also for their interest. In fact, I would rate for them, this is one of the most important countries. You know, the Malacca dilemma, etc., which they can overcome from here. There are other things. The recent developments, again, I might be a little off track, but I think I need to highlight, sir, is the rare earth minerals. I was just reading somewhere, sir, 2023, 2024. Rare earth minerals, the number of, the amount of mining that China has done in Kachin is huge. Uh, some time ago, I think some 5 years ago, some great Chinese official said, while the Gulf may have the oil, we have the rare earth minerals. Now, when he said that, they also counted the rare earth minerals that are there in Myanmar. So let me put that in figures. So these 2 years that I was talking of, 2022 and 23, 68% of the global output of rare earth minerals was from China. The United States came second at 12%. Myanmar was third at 11.5%. And this 11.5%, 98 or 99% of it went to China, sir. It just went to China. So for them, it is that 68 plus, let's say, 12%. It is almost 80%. So that is why, and how has it impacted Myanmar? Today, there are satellite images to show in fact, Kachin state looks like a lunar terrains. Uh, it's been mined so much. So that's the effect China is having there. So for rare earth is again a major thing. Then there is another thing I'm sure the viewers would know is the Mitsun Dam, which they're trying to activate. 2011, the then president cancelled it because it was inundating almost 26,000 hectares of land. 30,000 people were getting displaced. 90% of all electricity that was being generated was going to Kunming and Yunnan province. So it's been stopped. But for them, while Brahmaputra is in news, for them it is another Brahmaputras. For Myanmar, the Mitsun Dam is a Brahmaputras. So the Chinese interests are all selfish in nature, and like you constantly bring out in all your programs, so they are always predatory. They don't mean anything good, because that is not the case. In my multiple dealings and multiple trips to Myanmar, uh, and my dealings interactions with a cross section of the society, what came across very loudly was they say we have more faith in you, much more than the Chinese, but maybe you have your compulsions. You people are not able to deliver to the extent to which the Chinese do, and that is why we have no option but to go to them. We have to talk of the long linkages that we had. So the Buddhists, for them, coming to Gaya is like uh, getting nirvanas. So 90% of them are Buddhists, soft power, something that the Chinese can't give, and we need to capitalize on all of that.
Is there a case for us to go a little more aggressive in Myanmar?
Aggressive would mean in terms of
Aggressive and
being more.
assertive, both.
Um, so I think what we are doing currently is the right thing to do. Obviously, in terms of economics or trade, etc., we cannot uh, replace China. We cannot come anywhere there. What is important for us, like I said, is soft power, the relations that we share, and traditionally the border, Indo-Myanmar border, seen from their perspective, was always the most peaceful borders, the most peaceful border. They share boundaries with five countries. They have problems on the Bangladesh border with the Rohingya kind of stuff. They have the Karenis on the Thai border. Chinese, the most troubled border, and Laos, a very small border, but forested border. But yes, there are militants, ethnic armed groups there also. So this is the first time when the border along the Indian side is in trouble for them. But my assessment is this will not last very long. Uh, at some time, this will again come back to where it was. When you talk of should we be more active, is it in the form of supporting one party at the cost of other, being seen more visible? I don't think so. So what we should probably do is send some kind of a peace committee, try and engage all the stakeholders, uh, use our good offices to ensure, if at all there is an election, if that happens, help facilitate that. To be seen as neutral, that is more important. And they always have considered us neutral, whether it is the Myanmar army, the ethnic armed groups have always considered us neutral. And we should play up on that rather than going proactively in any way which might kind of upset
No,
them.
when I say proactively, it's not necessary siding with one or the other, but taking a little more proactive uh, role in affairs of Myanmar.
Yes, we surely should. We should try and see what else we can do, help them financially in terms of trade. They're usually short on, for example, rice. It is uh, assumed that in Rakhine State, uh, in even in Shan, Kachin State, they are hugely short on rice. Maybe we could help them in all of that. So food commodities, medical commodities, maybe some kind of not just medicines but other kind of medical help we could do. We could get some of their people over here and reach out in ways where the Chinese are not doing. And there are many ways in which we can do that, sir.
Good. With the way Myanmar is going, or it will remain, I don't see a early end to what was happening in Myanmar. And there is a spillover into Manipur without doubt. Do you think we'll be able to control Manipur? Because the spillover will be there, notwithstanding what has happened, governor's rule and all that. Do you think Manipur will come into our grips easily? It's not tough.
uh,
I mean, it's when I say easily, it's not going to happen easily. That I know. Manipur is a different kettle of fish with a different set of problems. And considering the fact that we don't know the lines of operation of the governor and his rule, after the governor's rule is imposed there. But do you see? I mean, correlation is also there. Do you see that some solution coming into Manipur, notwithstanding whatever is happening in Myanmar?
so if you ask me, Myanmar, what is happening in Myanmar, while it is affecting Manipur surely, but it is, to my mind, affecting Mizoram more, which is not being spoken of. I spoke of
Okay.
the disparity just in the refugees itself in terms of fighting. Now let's see what are the opposite Mizoram. There is not a single post of the Tamadao which is under their control. All of that has fallen. Opposite Manipur, uh, what you have opposite More, Tamu, that is holding out. And also south of Manipur, you have south of Churachandpur actually. So there's a place called uh, Chikha, which is across in Myanmar. That is also being controlled by Tamadao. So it is not that opposite Manipur everything has fallen, but if you go a little to the northeast, opposite Nagaland and opposite Arunachal, again Tamadao is holding out totally. There is no post which has fallen. So what I'm trying to imply here is it's affecting Mizoram more than Manipur. Now, since your question is targeted only at Manipur, my answer there is with the current situation there, with the governor's rule, president's rule having been imposed, we are seeing great changes. We have a governor who was hands-on. He was the Home Secretary. I was with him as the DG AR sub. Constantly, we used to be engaged. So he's a hands-on man. He knows everything what has happened. And no sooner did he take charge, he went around, met all the communities, which was received very well. There were very positive inputs of his the presence everywhere, because he showed that he actually meant business and ensured that people who were neglected will not be neglected here on. Uh, he's also passed strictures that cutting across all groups, all communities. Uh, he's already given a dictum 7 days for weapons to be surrendered if anybody feels. Thereafter, my understanding is there will be the security forces, Assam Rifle and Indian Army, and of course the other security forces will be given full freedom to go and take over weapons and start searching. So that will surely make a difference. So in terms of any more weapons that are likely to get looted hereafter, I don't think that's going to happen. That is a no-no. But in terms of, again, coming back to what's happening in Myanmar and its effect on Manipur, because of the status or the manner in which the border is configured, there are high chances of weapons coming in. We only talk of weapons, but drugs is also a major problem that we have to remember.
Yeah, drugs. Yeah.
So that's
I'm
also
not.
there.
I have not said about. I have
Yes,
not
sir.
said anything about.
Yes, sir.
Both issues
Uh,
are there.
I spoke a little about that earlier, and you did mention it in passing that the poppy cultivation has shifted from Afghanistan Taliban to this place to Golden Triangle. And alongside what has happened is the huge cultivation in poppies that has suddenly increased. While our media reports may give whatever, but in my reading, assessment, understanding, in my interactions with the NCB and all, what I've seen is much of the poppy cultivation growth has actually happened in Shan states, southern Shan. 80% of it, the increase I'm talking of, has happened in Shan state. 10% has surely happened in Chin and Sagaing regions, which border us. And in terms of Manipur, it is only Chin that borders Manipur largely. Of course, there is a little part of Sagaing also, but not much there. So little part, the 10% increase in poppy cultivation in the last 2 years, which has happened, is surely an area of concern, because it's simple facts that per acre of land, poppy cultivation yields fetch use 18 times more in terms of monies. And in terms of the duration for which I'm just kind of comparing paddy and poppies. In terms of the effort required for paddy is much, much more. So for lesser effort, with less people now indulging in actually physically present for agriculture, poppy cultivation for them is going to get them greater benefits. So with the president's rule coming, I'm sure that will also be addressed. So that is so weapons and this, and of course refugees. It's not in our hands.
Yeah. So you see the situation in Manipur improving slowly.
Yes, sir. I see it improving slowly
Okay.
hereafter.
Okay. Fine. Thanks. Yeah, I think you've given a full idea of what's happening in Myanmar. It'll be foolish of us to expect that Myanmar will head towards peace. I don't think so. I don't think peace will come into Myanmar for the next couple of years at least. That's the way I look at it. Notwithstanding elections, yeah, it's too nebulous. And peace will come. My assessment is peace will come into Myanmar only when the Tatmadaw becomes strong. Whether Tatmadaw becomes strong and it starts thing, we don't know. It is funny that you have China which is supporting Tatmadaw, you have China which is also supporting Arakan army. So how this dichotomy will play out is something which we have to see. My own guess is that we have to be assertive in ensuring that we open up this Kaladan multimodal port, um, even if at the cost of assisting Tatmadaw to open. Because I think somewhere or the other we have to say, okay, enough is enough, let's open it up. Because the moment you do that, a lot of things will change in many quarters. I think we've dragged our feet on this personally. This is my personal view. And yeah, like you rightly said, I think Manipur will slowly come back to some kind of suspended animated normalcy. Normalcy is still far away. Another 6 to 7 years before Manipur becomes normal is my assessment. I mean, I would, you might like to comment on that. So this
So
is where we
I think
are. Yeah,
there's an old saying, sir, it'll get worse before it gets any better. So we are past
it
that.
will.
It'll get worse. It'll only get better hereafter, sir.
Yeah, it'll get better, but well, there's a new paradigm. So let us see how things go. Because certain things which have happened in Manipur, like the raising of the local militia forces in the form of cultural groups, is something new. It's now taken root. To eradicate that will take time. And unfortunately, what I heard was that it is not only Manipuris who have gone that route, even the Kukis have gone that route. Though I'm not sure whether that is true or not. Something like that, Aramboy Tengal and Methi Lupun. So there are mirror groups within the Kukis. So if that's taken root, it's going to take a long time to pull that out and kill that rooting. So let us see for the betterment of all of them whether they sit together and work. And I feel the solution in Manipur is largely political. It is not anything politically. If some political resolution is found, things will go. But Myanmar, like you said, is going to fester for a long time to come. Is there anything else you have to say, or should I take a few questions?
So we can take on questions, sir. I
Yeah,
just wanted to bring one more thing to the notice of the audience. Again, it's something that is not known in my multiple interactions. When I tell people, they're surprised. So we spoke of this oil and gas pipeline, sir.
yeah,
Um, Now it cuts across the complete stretch of Myanmar, sir. It's about
Myanmar.
790 kilometers, let's say 800 kilometers. It will surprise you to know, sir, it's not only just the oil and gas pipeline, but 30 meters across that is Chinese area. Chinese have total control over that area. Myanmaris cannot get into that area. So if you multiply 30 meters into 800, that is 24,000 square kilometers of area is Chinese already.
Hmm. Okay. Is the Chinese army operating there, or the private
Uh,
security guards are operating?
they have their private security guards at most of their commercial places where they have the economic interest. They have placed them. Sir.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. The first thing. Okay, we'll take a few questions and comments. Somehow the internet is not very great today, so it will be a little low. Thank you for putting Myanmar under the microscope. We really appreciate the deep research and insights. Yeah, that's again gone. It'll come. As this information isn't easily available in the West. Thank you. Okay, one more question. There's something, the internet is pretty slow today. Sorry for this. Yeah. Yeah. Again, the same question is come. Yeah, we say that we are. Oh,
I read that question. Sir.
some problem happening. Yeah,
Why can't we
yeah,
utilize
yeah.
the
We
service
say
of
that we are
the army?
short of diplomats. Why can't we utilize the service of retired army officers to be proactive in Myanmar? Yeah,
that
your
is
views
that
on
is
this.
so that is no, a call that the paths that we should take. But yes, since this question has been raised, and with my experience of, like I said, many visits in Myanmar, they find it easier to communicate with people in uniform. And we have decades and decades of good relationship with them. I myself, as a company commander, sir, we have undertaken
Mhm.
joint patrols along the Indo-Myanmar border, and we share a great relationship right from that stage onwards. And whenever people in uniform go there and interact with them, they find it easier to, because we probably speak the same language in the same tone and tenor. Rest, in terms of us being sent as diplomats, that is a call which the PAs have to take.
Okay. Next question is, your outreach to media and civil world during your tenure was necessary and commendable in the Infowar age. Yet, your successor hasn't done quite the same. How to institutionalize outreach?
Uh, I mean,
And
it'll
not
be
make it,
wrong to.
it should,
Yeah, yeah, it
no,
is,
and I mean, the sense, the point is, it should not be individual dependent. It has to be institutionalized. That's the point is making.
yes, I understand. So every individual has his own way of addressing things, and my successor, incidentally, has done something very good. So he's reached out to the children of the Northeast. There was a program that was held, Unity program in Delhi, where we reached out to some 6 to 800 children of the Northeast. And in that form, what happened was, all these kids of the Northeast took part in multiple sports events: athletics, badminton, basketball, football, men, women. Uh, Close to 800 to 900 children have taken part. These are the future, and that, I think, he's addressed it at a pitched it at a very correct level, because these are the people who will shape the minds, opinions of people when they go back to their respective states. In this, what has also happened is, when you had a Manipur team, you had the Kukis, Nagas, Metis playing together as one team, which is unimaginable in Manipur, at least currently. Going forward, it will happen, of course. But I think he has reached out in this manner. Uh, so, like I said, everyone has his own way of reaching out
Yeah,
to
I
people.
agree with this.
So,
I see that point. Okay. Are all the northeastern states of Bharat are mostly in a state of distress? Would creation of UTs be an option to consider? Would direct central control be better option and way forward?
let me come to the second part. Creation of center controlling is just not the way. On the contrary, we need to decentralize within the whatever is there in the constitution. Schedule 6, then Article 371, 371A, B, C, etc., that are there, are good things which have to be formalized and ensured that it happens in the spirit in which they were created under the constitution. In terms of creating UTs, I don't think that is a way forward. What is required is empowering the grassroots, starting from the panchayats upwards, which is happening gradually. It is happening. I've seen this change that is there earlier. Uh, a prime minister once said, of every 1 rupee that is spent, just 5 paisa or 15 paisa reaches. That is no longer the case. I see now whatever funds are pumped there are reaching the people. At least most of it is reaching the people, and there is a huge difference that's happening on ground.
Okay. From our perspective, what's the best situation conclusion that can ensue? An elected government headed by puppets like Suchi, regional militias ruling the roost, or Tatmadaw having control?
Uh, it's a very good question to ask. Uh, it's always the national interests that are foremost. And from the time of our independence, the one entity that we've been engaging with for the largest duration of time is the Tamadaw. Uh, and Tamadao has its own compulsions. They share only 1643 kilometers with us. They share more than almost 2,500 kilometers with China. The overbearing influence of China is always there. So these three actors which you mentioned, Suchi or Tamadao or the ethnic armed groups, which that is militias, which makes sense. No matter which one comes, the Chinese will have an overbearing influence for reasons that are known to us. So that is our start point. And while speaking of this, I think we have to engage with all of them. We cannot have one, because if we do only one, it'll always be at the cost of other. So we have to engage with all of them in a manner which has to be deft and to the liking of them, which doesn't create any kind of animosity.
Okay, last question we'll take. What will be the long-term impact on northeastern state if the non-state militant groups continue to hold sway over bordering areas, bordering us on our internal areas, bordering us on our internal stability? How can we integrate, northeast through economic and other issues? Yeah, that's his question. I don't see the second part. It has gone down farther. Okay. Anyway, you get the
There are
drift of the whole thing.
there are two parts in this in terms of long-term impact of northeast states if non-state militant groups continue to hold sway over bordering areas. Yes, they did hold sway to a very great extent. Let's go back in time. The Naga insurgency, for example, which is the fountainhead of all insurgency in the Northeast. From 1955-56, when it started, it's been so many years. Now, gradually, they are not having the kind of control that they had. Numbers have reduced, the activities have reduced, but most importantly, the public support is not there. Like, for example, I was speaking on a show yesterday when this Har Ghar Tiranga campaign started. It may not have looked very great for rest of India, but in the Northeast, suddenly we didn't even have to pressurize the people. They were on their own willing to hoist a flag. And I'm talking of this happened just 2 years ago. And when I was a brigade commander, 2012-13, which is not very long back, just 10, 11 years ago, when something similar I tried hoisting flags in multiple schools and all. Most of the schools in Manipur said they can't do it because they're scared of the Methi militants. In a certain part they said no, they're scared of the other militant groups that are there. So there is an outreach which has happened. It was also in some way answering your question, how do we integrate them? So that is also happening. But don't worry too much about militants controlling the border areas. It's not the case. It is grossly reduced. It will only go down further. In terms of integrating the Northeast, I think the problem in rest of the country is also of our not accepting them for whatever they are. Ethnically they're different. They have uh, a culture which is very different. They have a cuisine which is very different from ours. You need to integrate them. In fact, wherever I go, I say, please don't speak of this famous line, uh, Northeast and rest of India. When you say rest of India or mainland India, it creates a binary. Uh, Particularly this word of mainland India. There, people say, why are we not mainland? We are as mainland as you are. So that's one thing. But gradually, what also seeing now is the movement of children, youth from the Northeast into rest of the country. I'm told about 15% of the population of the Northeast has now come to rest of the country. In fact, you see them very visible in the services industry. There's no flight where you don't have a crew from the Northeast. There is no hotel today in any of the major cities where you don't have kids from the Northeast. So this has all helped assimilation. We, as people from rest of the country, have to try to integrate them and not judge them or hold them with a different viewpoint.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, General Nair, for your expose on, and your talk on Manipur. So kind of you. Before
Pleasure.
I sign off, I would like to, yeah, 1 minute. One minute. Yeah, I'd like to thank Arunachal Mudir Garkar, who's become a YouTube member. Actually, he's rejoined after some time. And I'd like to tell him that, the today we had to do this show at 7 o'clock, which is out of character, which is normally not the time. Normally we have Gana short shows at about 8 o'clock when the response is better. So we had to do it at the last minute. So that's why I probably feel that the number of people watching live are less, but I'm sure it will pick up in due course. And everything has an up and down kind of a story, so one has to be patient about the viewership and things like that, because he's asked the question regarding that. But having said that, thanks a lot, Pradeep, for having joined us and educated us about Manipur. Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for all the people who attended. If you like this program, press the like button and ask your friends also to join in and Gana Shot. Thank you, good evening, and Jai Hind to all of you.
Thank you, sir.